Welcome back to Rewiring Prosperity, the WinVC series where we're celebrating success stories of women securing venture capital in Atlantic Canada. I'm your host, Vanessa Paesani. We've been talking a lot in this series about access to capital, and today we're joined by someone who cares a lot about shifting how capital moves and how it's invested. In this episode, I'm joined by Danielle Graham. Danielle is a venture capitalist and ecosystem builder. She's also the co-founder of the Firehood, an angel network, and a general partner with Phoenix Fire at Archangel Network of Funds. She's been at the forefront of unlocking capital for underrepresented founders, previously working with funds like Sandpiper and Dreammaker Ventures, and creating Fierce Founders, Canada's first accelerator dedicated to women entrepreneurs. In fact, she was a partner for our Win VC project last year, where she launched Firestarter, which connected women in Atlantic Canada with training, networks, and we actually took a group to Elevate, which was super great. So Janelle's not just working within the system, she's actively redesigning it. In this conversation, we'll get into how early stage capital works, what founders need to understand about investor decision making, and why changing who writes the checks is a key to changing outcomes. So let's get into it. Welcome, Danielle. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you, Vanessa. It's always great to chat with you.
Yeah, so I have some questions that I'd love to get your perspective on. I know that you've spent your career really like unlocking capital for underrepresented founders. What's the biggest misconception founders have about how early stage investing actually works?
I think the biggest is that they need to start kind of selling their company earlier than they need the money. So I think a lot of companies think about, the problem, the solution, they're building, they want to prove themselves, they want to prove traction, which are all, of course, normal, noble causes. But to fundraise, you're de-risking all the investment you're making in your own company. You want to bring in outside investment and outside support and ways to build around the community, right? It takes a village to build a startup. It's not a solo feat. And so I think that's a common misconception when people see these, big successful solo founders across Silicon Valley and they think, wow, that one guy did all of this. It's like, no, people were by their side, their team, their investors, their community, all of the incubators and support systems that exist for founders. So tap into that as early as you have an idea, and people can come in the journey at different stages. But there's people who will take that risk with you, and it's important to start telling them about what you're doing and getting them on board sooner than later.
Yeah, I like that it's the idea of building your tribe and building the people that really are going to take the business to its next stage and next stages because I imagine, you know, it's more than the next stage.
Yeah, like some people want to come in later, right? Private equity, mergers and acquisitions, all of that is later. But there's some people who want to come in right in that beginning stage. And if you don't start pitching it, if you're doing it in your own little bubble, then people can't help you.
Yeah. So I know that we worked together recently. I think it was last year on Firestarter, which was an initiative of Firehood, which we did through our previous phase of WinBC. And I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about the Firehood. I know it's not, it's not just a fund; it's a network. And why does community matter so much when it comes to capital? I think you've talked about it a bit, but I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, well, we started with Phoenix Fire, which is the investment arm. So the venture capital arm in Waterloo. It's part of Archangel Network of Funds. So as emerging managers, we were raising the capital. And as we were pitching to more and more women, they wanted to be involved. They wanted to advise and put their funds directly into startups. And really that community blossomed from those conversations. And so as we built out the Firehood to create those collaboration opportunities and that network, more and more opportunities like to partner with UNB and Pond-Deshpande came into an opportunity for us to support not only our angels, but founders. And so the Firestarter program was specifically for Atlantic Canadian companies in the first go round. And then we were able to get ongoing support from BDC to do it more nationally. but we had more than enough talent across Atlantic Canada to fuel a cohort. And that was where the angels were a lot of the advisors. So they were mentoring, they were offering the sessions, you got a lot of specialists. And there's a lot of interest and need from people in the ecosystem to say, hey, where do I fit in? How do I tap into the tech ecosystem? How do I get involved? And some people just don't know where to go. And they go to incubators, but incubators are working on the founder side. And then angels can be so niche and specific around, okay, take your money, put it in the startup, and that's it. So being able to support that advisory model, that engagement, that relationship building, that's really what a lot of the community is about, and why we do so many collaborations, partnerships with incubators, with yourself, with conferences has been a big one, right? We do pop-ups at conferences, and that's been really incredible marketing for all of our founders to get on a main stage and pop and have their moments. And then it really legitimizes them in all further conversations because people can see that there's already been this thorough vetting and this buy-in, and not only people who believe in them, but put their money where their mouth is and believe in them with early stage investment.
Yeah, and the conference that we all went to was Elevate, and for those people listening that weren't there, Danielle's group organized a pitch session before Elevate started for women, and it had people pitching both from Atlantic Canada as well as nationally, and then the people attending from Atlantic Canada were able to go meet investors and go meet other people at the conference. So I agree, like, the conferences are a nice way to do that because it's where people generally get together.
Yeah, there's so much activity happening already that's like pre-organized. And then all you need to do is consolidate to say, okay, let's do a private dinner at this time. Let's, have an event the day before. Everyone's coming into town to be there for the evening kickoff. Let's do our own thing and create a network. And then you get to build on those relationships in an effective and efficient way, especially when you're out of town.
Yeah. And when you think about giving advice to a founder that's, looking to raise, either started or thinking about it, and they're planning to go to a conference, like, what advice would you give them on developing a plan to leverage that time as effectively as possible?
Yeah, great question. I think not only when you go to a conference, but when you think about fundraising in general, it's almost like a sales process. So you have to do that process up front. You have to do the research, look into people, who would be a good fit for you beforehand, what organizations, and chat with people so that when you're going, you're setting up those meetings, you're being effective. You can't just expect to bump into people randomly. That's sometimes the lovely part about a conference or networking is that you run into fabulous people that you didn't know and you could almost couldn't organize. Maybe you stand next to the stage and you meet Venus Williams as she comes off the stage. Like you can organize, I'm not saying that from experience at all. Uh, yeah, you get those special moments and that's great. But to be more assured of your success, you can do a lot up front to prep. And if you're not going to a conference, if you're just planning on fundraising, even thinking about a few intense weeks of back-to-back meetings, how would you prepare for that? So you would set up with maybe some champions. Like I play this role a lot for a lot of founders where they reach out to me. I give them long lists of investors. I say, these are the core, angel groups. These are the core VCs. All of that research is available online. Sometimes if they're wondering about high net worth individuals, they can even do research through Fiverr. One time I hired someone for $100. They sent me a list of 500 investors across the US before I went to New York. So I can do that research. They can do that research. I can help them. But then at the end of the day, the way that you want to get someone's attention is through a warm intro, not a cold sales call, right? It's through multiple touch points. So not just one, and then you expect money the next time. And don't be asking for money right away. Like be conscious of the dynamics of that capital. So with high net worth individuals, it's not like they have a bucket assigned to angel investing. They can decide it's their own money. Do I want to invest? Am I inspired? Am I excited? and they have different amounts of time or comfort levels for when they invest. So people ask, well, what are angels looking for? I'm like, what are humans looking for? There's all kinds of different personas. So it can be quite unpredictable. And then with venture capital, because they've raised capital from specific LPs, they have different mandates. So a lot of Canadian VCs have raised from government funds like BDC or EDC. So they'll have maybe more similarities around when they could invest, what brackets, what theses, and that's all been signed off ahead of time and they can't fudge as much. So doing your research to say, do I fit this? Is it going to be at least a fit enough to get to the next stage, to get to the next conversation? Is it worth my time, or am I barking up the right or wrong tree? And so I think a lot of that can be done ahead of time. So you have your target list. Even as VCs, we have to raise. So I remember back at Collision, before it changed to Web Summit in Vancouver, I had a list of 10 people that I wanted to run into. And I knew I could get intros to them and I knew I could find a way. But if they were all there, it might be a more casual meeting. So I said to someone, I really want to meet this guy. And my friend was like, he's literally right behind you. And I was like, oh, hello. And I talked him up and I said all these things. And he was like, oh, this is wonderful. Well, come by my office next week. And he became an incredible mentor to me. And then I met someone else in the washroom and she gave me great advice. And so I've learned all these tricks of networking that I love to teach founders, but they really have to kind of find ways to put the odds in their favor, just like Hunger Games.
That's great advice. Yeah. Yes. How do we make I forget what the saying was, let the
May the
odds be ever in your favor.
I might have seen that movie too many times.
Yeah. I loved it in the books. Yeah. And you mentioned, getting warm intros. Any advice on doing that?
Well, here's, I would say, another example. So one time I wanted a warm intro. I'd heard about this woman who had over $1 billion IPO. And I thought, well, she'd probably be a great target for my fund. And we did get her in the end, so I'm bearing the lead. But the first call I had with her, we were on an advisory board together. So I thought, okay, we're peers, it's a reasonable person to talk to. Someone from the board introduced us. And my first call, she was kind of like, okay, yeah, that's cool that you're doing that. Okay, gotta go. It was very lukewarm. It was friendly, but it wasn't excited about, drawn in. And then we were also in a group that does retreats. So I told all my friends, I'm like, I can't come to this retreat this year, but she's amazing and I'd love to get to know her better and just say nice things about me. And they were honest because we were all friends. And so the next call, she jumps on, she's like, oh my God, I've heard about you. You're amazing. What can I do? How can we work together? And I'm like, well, I'm fundraising. And she ran to the bank and she invested that day. And so the dynamic between those two meetings was, yes, someone had introed. Yes, we had this formal connection. Yes, there were all those kinds of typical warm things. But sometimes it takes 3 warm things. Sometimes it takes the right timing. Sometimes, I didn't know what she was going through that first time, but we became such good friends that I found out more. And the fact that the next time she was already like, I really want to get involved with women entrepreneurs. I've heard a lot about that. And, that sounds like a good fit for me. So she was already it was timing, it was relevance, it was all the people who we have in common. So not just one. And so I tell founders the same things. I'm like, look, I can go and champion you and I can say something and make an intro. But if 2 other people do the same thing, they're going to think, wow, this person's got momentum. They're everywhere. They know my network. They'll feel the social convening around this founder. And in a lot of ways, it is authentic. It's not manipulative or anything to do something like that because it is showing, hey, you're connected, you're dedicated, you're committed. Now is the time. You're putting in the energy. You're developing that FOMO and that excitement and that draw into all the work that you're doing. So I think that's important, and I think that that's part of the strategy. And so I'm here as a champion. There's other people I know. 10 other people who could champion you in all the same circles. And the Canadian ecosystem is actually quite small, even though from coast to coast, especially Toronto, Waterloo, it's the same people over and over again. So you can build relationships with them over time. And today is the best day to start. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, I like that because a few years ago, I read a book called Unicorn in the Woods, which was about, really the story of Radiant Six and QN Labs, which was, founded by men, but it was a number of years ago. And one of the pieces of advice kind of that was like threaded throughout the book was to make sure we leave Atlantic Canada and go to these other places. And Danielle, I know that you like to travel. I know I've seen you in the East Coast a bunch. I know you get to the West Coast and you're traveling now. What advice do you have for people as they think about moving around and going to the places of activity or like the hotspots of investment or whatever it might be?
Great question. Yeah, I mean, I lucked out in that I'm more of a citizen of the world. My parents raised us in international schools across Africa. So, though I'm originally a West Coaster born in Vancouver, I've spent a decent amount of time on the East Coast. I think that there's some part of me that the coast, the ocean, it's got similar vibes, and you'll be seeing a lot of me this summer again. And right now I just happen to be in Kenya and, enjoying the warmer weather, and I think that, I can see when I'm not in the bubble, how people are drawn into it, and it seems like it's such a big deal to get on a flight and go somewhere else and meet the people you need to meet. But no matter what, if you're building a viable, scalable business, you're gonna need customers, you're going to need clients, you're gonna need talent. You're not gonna No matter where someone is, whether it's even in the heart of Silicon Valley, they're always gonna need other parts of the world to build their business. And so being comfortable with saying, "This is what I'm getting out of here, but where do I need to go, and what do I need to do to make this successful?" And so I do find that some Canadians will get really not even just about their city, but their province, and that becomes like the whole identity of the company. And I think getting out of that comfort zone, building where you need to build, and also getting there sooner. I think people think they have to hit a certain milestone or certain success in order to go to, well, Dubai's not necessarily the most popular place to go right now, but go to London, go to Portugal, Malta is happening, Hong Kong. Sometimes the unexpected places are the most welcoming because they're so excited and it's less saturated too. So you can find capital, you can find clients, you can find teams, you can leverage the benefits of all these different regions for the success of your company. And I think just being really globally minded and have that global perspective and competitive, right? You want to win, you want to succeed. You want to be the last one standing in Hunger Games. I mean, hopefully it doesn't mean all the other companies die, but there's space for everyone. But I think that allowing that competitiveness is sometimes not the most Canadian trait. So I think we can, and also just appreciating our successes and our talent and our potential, not in an arrogant way, but in a proud, like confident way to say, no, we are world class and we can deliver. And actually part of this is articulating that and positioning that and commercializing that, because the world wants to welcome us, especially this last year. Everywhere I went to Web Summit Lisbon for the first time, and it was fantastic. It was extreme. There were 75,000 people at this conference, and I think even more outside with all of the events going on. And as soon as you say Canada, people just light up. I might tattoo it on my forehead. I've got it on a bracelet at least.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and yeah, I know it's important to have the Canadian branding, but one thing I admire about you when I see you at a conference is you're always wearing orange, which is the color of, the Firehood. And so really like you're always really like being a brand ambassador of what you're doing. Any advice for people as they think about being a brand ambassador for their own business?
Yeah, I mean, I actually learned that trick from a couple founders who would wear their brand colors all the time and represent in that way. And I'm wearing one of my, favorite startups, Protexa, right now. So even when I'm having an off day, I'm always like, you're always it's part of you, right? In an authentic way. And so I think that having your cards ready, there's just little experiences that people can have with you that shape them. Like I printed really, really beautiful cards and I just had my name on it, like Ocean's 11, where it said Daniel Ocean. And and I don't even know how they contacted him. So I couldn't just have my name. So I did have my email, but I tried to keep it simple. Like you're getting invited to a secret society. And I still have people contact me years later being like, "Oh yeah, I kept your card because it was so nice, and then I thought of you and I reached out." And it's like these different experiences you have with people where, you can do something you can give first. Like when I can get people tickets to conferences or events or a speaking opportunity. When I was at Web Summit in Qatar just recently, I had met a woman for the second time because she was also in Lisbon, so people do the kind of route. And I'm like, "Well, I have 3 speaking engagements back to back, which is exhausting. Do you want one?" And she said yes, and she was so excited. So she got on stage and she took one of my spots. And then she said, "Oh, do you want a ticket to Forbes next week? I'm going to be in Dubai." I'm like, "Yes." So you can create these connections that it doesn't always have to be fully like she's another VC. I'm not pitching to her. It's more like peer to peer friendship, but we can also help each other. And when we think of something, we can help. And I can reach out to her and get her advice on what I'm pitching or who I'm pitching, or we can say good things about each other. So I think you can create that world for yourself where is think being generous first. And, if people don't reciprocate, then you put that energy to someone else. But I think that's one way that I've succeeded in networking in these spaces.
Yeah. And as a final question, you mentioned Phoenix Fire. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about that and any advice that you'd have for founders coming either to you or to similar types of funds.
Yeah, great question. We're still deploying. We're in our 5th year, so we've been around for a while, and a lot of it comes down to, founders need to be prepared. So, like, what are your terms? What is your investment strategy? So sometimes founders they'll pitch me, be like, "Okay, what are you asking for?" And they won't know. They'll say, "What should I ask for?" I'm like, "I'm not going to tell you how to negotiate with me. So they won't have their terms, they won't have their valuation or their strategy or their use of funds or other investors. So they need to go through that whole kind of sales process that I described before of thinking about who would be a good fit, how do they structure that out. And usually for me, like I'm a friendly, I would say. So it's okay to have that conversation with me when you're early, and I'll just say, "Here's what you need to do. Here are some places that can support you with that." And from there, they can come forward when they're ready. And so I won't hold it against them. Some VCs will think, "Oh, well, this company isn't going to be ready for 6 months or a year." And if they try to come back after 3 months, they'll want to see something sent to them and review it before they take the time for a meeting. Well, it's because I think we're so early stage. I'm used to them not being ready, but they can get ready pretty quickly. Like it's new, it's a steep learning curve. It's okay to not know what to pitch. It doesn't mean anything about the quality or potential of your business. So it's just a new thing to learn. And so the big advice I can give is, have a range that you're comfortable with for your valuation. Have kind of the set terms around, you know, discounts and caps and all of that. Have an understanding of who would be a good fit. It doesn't take that much research now, or just ask AI to do it for you. And think about getting a few people who already know you really well, who could be that early buy-in. So you're not coming with kind of from scratch with a net new relationship, because that takes time. If you're just meeting me for the first time and you expect me to be your champion, I'd like to know who else you've known for a while who can champion you. Have you been in an accelerator? Do you have a good reputation after working with them for 6 months or 3 months? That can give a character reference. So then I know it's worth taking the time to open you up to my network. Because if I just open it up like next day, I'd be getting all these calls and feedback if the conversations don't go well, right? Oh, why? And then that affects the next person I'm trying to intro to them. So there is some stage gating, and I'm not what I would consider like a gatekeeper, but I want to make sure that it's going to be a successful meeting if I'm doing the intro.
Yeah, and I think underlying that is the trust building, right? And yeah, I think those are lots of great tips. Like know what your bottom line is. Practice maybe a negotiation. How do you be a brand ambassador all the time for what you're working on, what you're building? How do you have a global mindset and really like some interesting tips on developing lead lists, like using Fiverr or AI or whatever it might be. Like how do you leverage the opportunities that are in front of you in the best way possible? So, thanks so much for all of the advice and tips, Danielle, and thanks also for supporting our previous WinBC program in the form of Firestarter. And we're so excited that it has continued through the support of BDC.
Yeah, no, it's been wonderful working with you. Thanks for asking me to chat today. Happy to continue to meet wonderful founders from you and from across Atlantic Canada.
Thanks so much to Danielle Graham for joining us for that great conversation. If you'd like to learn more about what Danielle and her team are building, you can find the Firehood online at firehood.net. And if you're interested in their fund, you can find it at Archangel Network of Funds and look up the Phoenix Fire Fund. And we hope that you'll join us for the great conversations that we have coming up in our Win VC series. If you'd like to check out the past episodes, you can see them at pond-deshpande.ca/win-bc and follow along to the series on your podcast channel of choice. Hope to see you next time.